Hello, this is Kevin Mann, and this is Module 3B, Interest Momentum. Spark and maintain attention during your talk. It's easy for your audience to get bored or simply lose interest. You need to keep your talk moving. There are 6 ways to spark and maintain attention that we're going to cover in this module. Open with a bang, drive on a storyline, chunk your talk into sections, seal key points, simplify, and spice your talk with variety, humor, and involvement techniques. We're going to cover each one in order. Opening with a bang means at the very start of your presentation, engaging your audience, bringing their attention from whatever they did before your talk right onto the subject of your talk. You can engage them, get them thinking, surprise them, or captivate them with a story. And make a promise. Make a promise that you're going to resolve something that they care about. So, engaging, here's some examples. You can ask a question. Begin with you. Begin with imagine. Challenge convention. Or assign them a task. All of these are ways that you're going to get them thinking right at the start of your presentation, and that's ideal. Another way to get them thinking is to surprise them, because a surprise causes them to think also. So you can give them a shock, a statistic that's surprising, reveal something new that they weren't expecting, show them something that's unexpected for some other reason, that usually it's rare, or some novelty, introduce some novelty. Stories are captivating. They'll bring people's attention almost instantly. A personal story is great, or a confession, or a second party story. That's a story about somebody else, or a historical story that's relevant to your talk, or a joke, again, that's relevant to your talk. So these are all ways to launch into your talk, getting people's attention early. Here's an example. New guardrails cut fatalities by 15%. That's something that will be very interesting to a transportation safety audience. And you could start with a second party story. Dan Spink and his family were killed when their SUV hit a standard guardrail and flipped their car. The failure of the current solution. In Berrytone, Louisiana, officials installed guardrails 5 inches higher than normal to cut down on SUV rollovers, then discovered that the higher post heights caused new safety problems. So you have made a promise about cutting fatalities with new guardrails, and introduced a story that's going to engage the listeners, and you're going to obviously have to solve this story. Otherwise, you have a very weak presentation. So, typical action storyline, problem and pain points, why current approaches don't solve the problem well, insight into a better way to solve the problem, action to implement the better way, and a benefit to taking the action. This is a very standard action storyline. It's proven. I can guarantee you this works in many different situations. And we're going to cover storylines a little bit more in the section on structure, presentation structure, that comes later in the training. But this one works, and people are not tired of it yet, so feel free to use it. Usually is when people don't stick to the storyline. Here are 4 issues. There are gaps in the storyline, so bridge out. Or you get off track, wrong turns. You start to introduce another topic which isn't important to your storyline. Or pick fights. This is a road rage. It's picking a fight when you introduce a claim or make a statement that's not necessary to the storyline. Why is that picking a fight? Because if it's not important to the storyline, and almost anything you say, some people will disagree with. So if it's not important to your storyline, and you're bringing in something people can disagree with, how can that help you? Right? You don't want to introduce things that aren't important to the destination you're trying to reach. And overly complex information, which just means driving in a fog. People will lose the ability to follow your storyline. Here's an example of a demographic segmentation for cruise travel, demographic segments. I think this would be too complex for many situations, so I wouldn't use it unless I really had a technical audience that wanted to go through this kind of detail. From the same source, cruisemarketwatch.com, here's a behavioral segmentation. Explorers, admirals, marines, little mermaids, escapers, souvenirs, adrift. These are very easy to understand segments that your audience is going to be able to relate to. So think always about, when you're presenting information, is there an easier to consume way of presenting the information? If you can make it easier, that's going to be a big help for your audience. Chunk your talk, because people have short attention spans, but those attention spans reset with each chunk. So if you can break your talk into, say, 5 to 10 minute sections with very clear delineations between the sections, that's going to help you. The Telegraph said that attention spans are down to 5 minutes. Kind of concerning. 1 minute world news is now featured by the BBC. 1 minute. And Vine now has 6-second videos. It's a service from Twitter. I found that so astonishing, I had to include one in this talk. So let's look at a Vine video. So here's a 6-second video that The Gap provided on Vine. So in a world with 6-second videos, you have to keep things moving. Seal key points, logic and data, it works in theory. Examples, it worked for the people in the example. Or involvement, it'll work for me. Involvement means involving the audience. When you seal a key point, it's like saying, all right, we made that point, now we're going to move on. Less complexity makes your ideas easier to grasp and will be less tiring for the audience. Wow, this is a terrible slide. So let's drop out the background. Good, that's less complex. But can we improve this further? All right, let's try. Simpler equal easier. Whenever you present information, just see if you could make it that much simpler. If all you need is 2 words and an equal sign, just use 2 words and an equal sign. Try to streamline your presentation. If you can make your talk interesting and interactive, it will keep people's attention better. So humor and anecdotes, examples and stories, audio and video, those are all great. Involving people by questions, games and quizzes, exercises and activities, all those are great. You can use many of these things with very senior audiences. Don't think that these are just for training classes. You can use these techniques with very senior audiences. Just be appropriate. We're going to watch Dean Ornish give a talk, and what you're going to see is some busy, text-heavy slides, and yet you're going to stay interested. So I'm not giving you this talk to show you how great his slides are, but watch how he uses a logical storyline, stays on his storyline, and has a relentless presentation pace, a little too fast for most, but presents his talk in a very short amount of time, and you stay riveted to the screen. Okay, let's watch Dean Ornish. It's the next talk on the playlist.